February the 1st, 2023. Guys, it is 6:58 p.m. Central Time here in Central Mississippi. What you're looking at is national maps, and the yellow and orange are dry areas. This is called the lower level water vapor map. The blue and white areas is where your moisture is. We've got all these freeze and winter storm freeze warnings out tonight throughout the southeast. Now, we are very lucky where we are at tonight. A couple of years ago, we weren't. When the ice storm came through Texas, we got it very hard here without power for 2 or 3 days. Solar panels came in very handy with a wood burner. Now, North Mississippi, we're under these winter storm warnings, freeze warnings, all of the above. Louisiana. But you guys in Texas, you're starting to get a break in the Dallas area. Look at that. You're froze up. You've got, now we were, I think at 250 customers in the video this morning. Now it's over 330,000 customers. That's meters. So you've got to add the people that are involved in that. Now, notice in this yellow area that's coming up through the Dallas area and into Arkansas, you're starting to get a break in the moisture. That's going to help. We're already getting reports all day long from limbs freezing over, more ice coming in, limbs falling, crashing down. Again, you've got, just in Texas alone, over 330,000, I think. We'll look at the exact numbers. But right there you see a drying area. Now, very fortunate that this area right along the edge of this is above freezing. We're gonna get tested tonight, but below the, I would say 30 or 40 miles north of Jackson, Mississippi, down to maybe around Lake Providence, Louisiana, in that area, you're gonna see it. But lucky, we're very fortunate because it's very devastating, and because it's not a very usual event. Let me say it that it's not common. A lot of our infrastructure is built above ground here, and when these freezing limbs and all fall on it, but that really occurs in every state. Just depends on where you are at. But it looks like we're going to get some breaks from it. This morning it looked like it was going to continue to pump moisture for the next few days. But notice going down into Mexico and into the southwestern areas of Texas, there it is starting to dry up. Maybe this will cut the flow off from the Pacific Ocean, getting a little pull from the Gulf of Mexico. Notice that. Let's take a quick look at the National Weather Service map. Now, just scanning across, look at the left and the right of the nation. You got gale warnings. There's a lot of wind involved in this storm that's moving across. In the pink areas, you've got winter storm warnings. The purple areas are ice storm warnings. That's the most dangerous. Below that, below this freezing line in the green, you've got some flash flood watches and flash flood warnings. The purple areas are winter weather advisories. You can see where it's all tracking. You can see where the wind's moving out in front of this in Tennessee, going up into Kentucky. The Appalachians, all the way up through the northeast, are going to experience this as that cold front pushes down from the break in the Arctic vortex. Now, 6:59 p.m. Central Time. This is the power outage map. You can see Texas has went from orange to red. They're saying the customers out are 342,017. Remember, that's meters, so there could be possibly more people involved. You know there's more people involved than that, and you would have to subtract, say if a large business was shut down because of power, like Walmart or Target, or you know what I mean, then that would account for some of it. But many of these are residential homes, and you can click on Texas and go to the different counties and places like where Austin is. You can see that's where the most damage is being done. But in Louisiana, you have nearly 1,999. Arkansas, 1,863. Oklahoma, only 28 out. That's good. Mississippi, we have 1,881. Again, Arkansas, 18. Tennessee, 2,000. This is going to continue to move forward. But if you click on Texas map, it's going to take you and show you the county information. And this is what you're going to see. You've got the Milan County, 5,064. Here's a big one, Travis County. That's the one I was talking about. We've got out 169,182 customers. And it's cold. It has to be cold to have these kind of conditions. So if you have the power's out, maybe the cell phones are possibly still working, other types of communication. We talked about how important it will be in the video this morning to have alternative means of communication, CB radios, short waves, but you would want to have a backup generator. In my case, I use solar power with a battery bank because you can run out of fuel, especially the way this nation is going. But this will give you the information, guys, so we're hoping that this area here is matching that dry area that I showed you on the water vapor map in the beginning of the video. Now, things in Russia are going pretty much the way they have been. What is changing is $2.2 billion more that Biden is sending in money. I don't know if it's, how it can get in a washing machine, but it's some high-tech missiles that can go almost 100 miles across the border into Russia. And that's not going to be tolerated very well. And we know that there's tanks and other countries getting involved, but again, there's more and more nations that are saying no. We see what the U.S. has done over the last century and what's been done for the last 200 or 300 years, and really going back in time, the conquest and the greed and the power lust, the bloodlust. We see that. But everything's going to escalate on that front. Let me share some good news that I think is relevant, and it was written for these times. So let me change what we're looking at. Now, I want to read from 1 Peter chapter 2. I encourage you to read chapter 1. It leads up to this, but for time's sake and going to this point, I want to read this chapter. But again, start with 1 Peter chapter 1. But chapter 2, and he's talking to the elect. Many of you are here tonight, and this type of information can wake up the people that you're not sure. Like you say, well, I'm trying to do everything I can. I love Jesus Christ. The reason you're here, this end times, is because you were chosen for that. Because God knew that you would stand up against evil. He said, wherefore, laying aside all malice and all guile and hypocrisies and envies and all evil speakings. He's talking about coming out of the physical into the spiritual. What was the main law that Christ talked about? Love your Father in heaven and treat everyone like you want to be treated. And remember, when everything changes, war will no longer be taught. As newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow thereby. If so be you have tasted that the Lord is gracious. That taste of that milk, that graciousness from our Father, is the yearning that you have for the truth. To whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious. He's talking about Christ. Do you love Christ? Do you believe that he was the Son of God? Ye also, as lively stones, he's talking to us, this generation, are built a spiritual house, not a temple, not a physical temple, a holy priesthood. Why? Because among us, and it has been for years, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there's a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices, not killing animals, acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. Wherefore also it is contained in the Scripture, behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. That's why it's so important to teach the truth. Let the words speak for themselves as much as you can, and in all of your reporting. And guys, no one gets it perfect. None of us do. But do your best. He's talking about changing your whole attitude, realizing that Satan's in control and all the animosity around us and the war and everything. It's temporary. It's going to affect us physically. But what are you going to do about the same things Christ did? What did he turn the crucifixion into a war. He knew that what he was doing would be read to this day, his history, and what he did when he was persecuted for being who he was. And Peter knew this. Peter was there. He told Peter to put that sword up. He said, we have this. Unto you, therefore, which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner. And a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. But ye, he's talking to you now, you're here for this reason, not for me, it's for this word and these end times and how you're supposed to handle this situation. But ye are chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Just let that sink in. A holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. He's turning that light bulb on as we speak. And what this does, and many people have been awake for a long time, but when you go back and you look at this information and you put it in text with what we are dealing with now, worldwide, this is the most important thing you need to understand. Let me read that again. But ye are a chosen generation. Why were you chosen? Because not everyone, this is not taught in many churches, but many of you know of one of the greatest teachers of all times out of Gravette, Arkansas. His name was Pastor Arnold Murray at the Shepherd's Chapel, and it's still a 24-hour-a-day broadcast. He is no longer with us. Many of his videos are still there, but his sons continue with live broadcasts. But he taught, and I believe it to this day, that, again, the angels in heaven, 1/3 followed Satan, they were cast down. 2/3 didn't. Now, those 2/3 are part of this generation. They were chosen. All were chosen to go through this life one time. I'm not talking about reincarnation at all. I'm talking about, as you stood before God, he said, will you go and and he was asking the generation of the 2/3 that fought with him. Guys, just if you don't understand it, just bear with me. We'll get back to this message that you're looking at. But the 2/3 that did not follow Satan, that stayed and fought with our Lord, he chose you because you did that. Now you're here. Now it's time to wake up and understand who you are, why you're here, and how special you are. Forget the world. This has to do with everybody. You still got to take care of business. You still got to take care of your family. But forget the anxieties. Work on the perfection inside you. Again, this chosen generation. I have to read it one more time. But you are a chosen generation, guys. This is the most important thing you can ever understand. A royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into marvelous light. It wasn't a set nation, a set place. We have been called out of darkness. All of us have seen it. Again, this peculiar people, guys, it's not one nation, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God. You're waking up, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Again, that chosen last generation of the fig tree for this battle of the end times. A lot of people pray, and I understand it, and I'm not putting anyone down. A lot of people pray for Christ to come quickly. But when you read this and you understand that you are of the royal priesthood, and the royal priesthood, they had a shield on. It had 12 beautiful stones, and it wasn't a breastplate of iron like the Locust Army has, which, if you think about the reference of breastplates, think about the priesthood in the end times and the locust army and the things that are going to be taught which are not true. Now, I think Christ chose Peter to read this because Peter was right there with him, went through the anxiety, the anger, everything. Went through every emotion you can, went through the lack of faith for a moment like we all have. But this is to solidify who you are and what you're supposed to do. It says, "Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation." That tells you why you're here. You got to stand up, be strong, get away from the fleshly lust, the war against your soul. What is a war against your soul? It's to kill your soul. War is a battle. One side loses, one side dies, one side wins. Having your conversations honest among the Gentiles, whereas they speak against you as evildoers, you're a conspiracy theorist. You don't, what is, Jesus is not here, God doesn't love you. That by your good works, in other words, you stood strong in that storm. You were a rock, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. That, again, you're a pillar in the temple, the elect. So by you standing tall, you're going to share, millions will end up seeing that. And it will be like a ripple in the pond going out from you to everyone else and spreading. This generation, this elect standing in adversity against evil and doing what? Dropping nuclear bombs? No. What did Christ do with Peter? Put the sword down. We got this. Let them commit murder. Thou shalt not kill. Let them do it. But Satan wants you to become so angry that you start breaking those commandments. Get hungry, steal. Creates hunger, creates famine, creates anger. Thou shalt not kill. Think about it. We've all have been guilty of a lot of that anger, that thought that draws all the light out of you, pulls you right into darkness. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man by the Lord's sake, whether it be the king as supreme, or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. For so is the will of God, that with well-doing you may put to silence the ignorance of the foolish men. And you've got that, you see it. Look at Mr. L. Graham wanting to go straight into war. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, and not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. Now, a lot of times if you look at the word fear, it's revere. It's not talking about worship, but it's not necessarily talking about fear. Just understand you're working within a system, almost like a matrix of the physical body, and you want to make it through that, and you want to be a symbol to people that are searching for the truth. Once you understand it, it's sweet to the mouth and becomes bitter to your belly when you realize that now you have to digest it and you have to spread that word. You can't hide it under a basket where the light can't shine. All of that will be taken from you. All of the knowledge you have, when you stop sharing it, will be taken from you. Well, repetition is memory. Like teaching a teacher, they know it well because they do it every year. You have to stay in it. Again, we're all guilty of not doing it enough. For this is thankworthy if a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. That's hard to do, especially when you're an old redneck like me. Many times I've not endured it very well and put some grief on some other people that did not want to endure that. I try to never start it, but I'm guilty of, again, being an old redneck. But like it says again, be thankworthy if a man conscious toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. Many have done it. For what glory is it when you be buffeted for your faults, you shall take it patiently. You did something wrong, you get punished. You steal something, you get locked up, whatever. Speeding ticket, you have to pay it. But when you do well and suffer for it, you take it patiently, that is acceptable with God. Why? Because Christ did no wrong and he suffered. He never gave in. He didn't fight back. Now, he got angry. He overthrew that table of the money changers in the temple of the Lord. And we see that table now, the preaching of prosperity. That table will be overturned when Babylon burns. It's all part of the same plan. But guys, again, I'm not a preacher, but I thought this fit very well, especially about the elect. You are a entire new generation of light. Think of it that way. But you're here to study. It was Timothy, I think it was, it said, study to show thyself approved. That's important. If you don't study, you're not going to know what to do. Like God said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Study chapter 1 of Peter and this chapter 2, 1 Peter. And understand that it's talking to you. You are a special generation, these warriors of light, this last priesthood, the elect that are the pillars of the temple. It's a heads up, guys. Be safe.